On your Saturday episode of Locked On Raptors, if you go undefeated in the group of death, do you become death itself?
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, temporarily known now, of course, as Locked On Canada Basketball. It is Saturday, August the 3rd, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 10 seasons, covering Canada basketball for, summers on and off over the course of the last 10 years as well. And thanks so much for being here on a lovely Saturday as we get into some Olympic basketball action, some big stuff going down on Friday in Paris. I've lost the plot on how I normally do these intros. I've thrown myself off. You can, of course, find me over on the Hell website at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors. And, of course, you can join us over in the Locked On Raptors Discord server where all sorts of Canada basketball talk is going on as Canada's men's, women's, 3-on-3 teams play. It's a wonderful thing. Come hang out. Link in the description of the podcast. Free to join as always. Of course, you can find the show for free on your audio app of choice as well. You can follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend on those apps to support the show. You can also go to YouTube and subscribe to the Locked On Raptors YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell button as well, and you'll get a heads up via push notification every single time the show is about to premiere or go live. It's a wonderful thing. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. And all summer long, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we'll get started here on, again, a Saturday episode reacting to Canada moving on to the quarterfinals. We already knew that was going to happen, but we know they're doing it in undefeated fashion in the group of death, Group A, in men's Olympic basketball action. We'll get a little bit into the women's side as well, not going super swimmingly for Victor Wembanyama's team over there. We'll get into that later on in the show too, but very exciting times. Canada 3-0. They will be the third seeded team as the group winner with the third best point differential. Thanks, France, for getting waxed by Germany. Really appreciate that. Obviously, the States, they've yet to play at the time of recording here their final game of the group stage against Puerto Rico, but it seems like a foregone conclusion that they will go and be the number one seed overall due to point differential. And here to talk about what it means, talk about a really fun game over Spain, a very desperate Spain team. We'll get into the likely quarterfinal matchup with France and what that could look like. And some good, some bad, some it is, of course, Vivek Jacob here hanging out on a Friday evening with me, pulling late duty, and it's very nice to have you, buddy. How the hell are you?
I'm great. Seeing Canada in the quarterfinals. I mean, this group was viewed as the group of death. So you go up against Australia, Spain, Greece. You come out with 3 W's. You couldn't really ask for more. I mean, obviously, there's little things that you can nitpick. You wish Jamal was really looking healthy and things like that. But in terms of overall results, you have to be happy for the first appearance for the men in basketball since 2000. And how fitting it would be if it was France again in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll get into that coming up. It does seem, barring a South Sudan upset over Serbia in their game on Saturday, it does seem likely that it will be Canada-France in the quarterfinals. Lots of juicy notes to get into in that one. But I do want to dive in off the top here, Big V. You mentioned the game against Spain, 88-85. Canada pulls it out. Looked really strong in the first half of this one. And then Spain, super desperate. They needed to win to advance. A loss sees them go out of the tournament, which is a big disappointment for Spain, the number 2 team in the world coming into this tournament. And they were throwing everything they had at Canada down the stretch of this one. And Canada hangs on. And I think maybe we start with RJ Barrett hitting one of the single biggest shots in Canadian men's basketball history. Is it fair to say that? I know this game wasn't the difference between making the quarterfinals or not, but the big 3-point bucket late off a pass from gilgeous-alexander driving into the Spain defense puts them up 85-80 with, I think, 20-30 seconds left, something like that. It really felt like the dagger. There was lots of fouls and back and forth possessions to close this one out, but that shot was huge, and for me is going to be sort of the indelible moment of this game, maybe the entire group stage for Canada going forward. It was pretty rad.
That was amazing. I mean, you love everything that you've seen from RJ over the course of this group stage, and everything we've seen from RJ since the time he was traded by the Knicks,
Yep.
and this is just steadily progressing as who he is now and what he does, and to knock down that big shot. Obviously, Spain in this game, you knew there was going to be that desperation mode. You knew they were going to pull out all the veteran tricks of the trade. And I thought, uh, you know, especially in that second half, that experience was kind of showing and that know how. And for Canada now to have this game where they bent but didn't break, to have that test against Australia where they had to make these second half adjustments, to have that game against Greece, where things were kind of falling away late,
Hmm.
but you managed to hold on. I think that should hold them in good stead heading into the knockouts.
Yeah, I think for me to go 3-0 in this group, everyone knew it was the toughest group. It played out like that. All of the games between all of the teams in this group were super close affairs. I think, yeah, you'd like them to have had a better point differential. Sure, they probably gave a little bit up and maybe had a shot at being one of those top two seeds, the number one seed in one of the pots going into the quarterfinal seeding and all of that. We still have yet to figure out what side of the bracket they'll be on. There's all sorts of machinations to be sorted out after the games that go down on Saturday. But despite the not blowing these teams out, I don't know if it was like a fair expectation to even do that. I come away super encouraged by their ability to just kind of close these games up, right? Yeah, they were close. Yeah, these teams were kind of sticking around and hanging in longer than you'd like, considering I think the pretty clear talent disadvantage that all these teams were at compared to Canada, minus Giannis on Greece because he's just individually so bloody ridiculous. But I think I come away more encouraged that they were so lights out in these clutch moments for what comes ahead against better competition, and sort of deeper into the tournament, higher stakes competition, all of that. And it's a really comforting thing. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander provides a lot of comfort. He's an absolute monster late in these games. Had a couple of maybe wayward possessions in this one that you would have liked to have gone another way or been a little bit more sort of, team oriented or whatever. But overall, I think you can only feel encouraged about how they handled these very tight games in this very close group, despite not having the point differential to get them into that top two seeding bracket. I guess for you, overall level of belief, concern, is there anything that kind of popped up in this group stage that really stands out as like, ooh, that's something another team could really pick at? There were a couple things in this game that the rebounding was really rough. They lose the rebounding battle 40-29. And, there are only going to be big teams ahead, namely France, if they get them in the next game. Is that something you're a little bit worried about? Just like the big man depth and the performances you're getting out of Kelly Olynyk and Trey Lyles and Kem Birch on down the line. I think Dwight Powell's been pretty awesome, at least defensively. But where are you at as far as level of worry, level of encouragement, level of belief that they'll be able to overcome whatever sore spots they might have?
Yeah, I think definitely size you could see being an issue for sure against the US, against Germany,
Mm,
against Serbia. I think going into a matchup potentially against France, it's not as much of a concern because you have significant advantages in other areas
mm,
of the court. And I think, especially in the guard play, that should reflect nicely. Uh, so I think that is something specifically, if I had to pinpoint three teams as far as size is concerned: USA, Germany, Serbia, for sure that's a concern because let's face it, those three teams are strong in other areas as well,
mhm.
where now that, that size becomes a distinct advantage. Uh, Now, if there's another concern, it has to be Jamal Murray.
Yeah,
Obviously, he's giving the best that he can, but it's obvious that he's not right. And this version of Jamal, I think, makes it difficult to view the ceiling as a gold medal.
sure.
Um, and I think it was always going to be a very good accomplishment for this team to just medal, period.
Mhm.
And I still think that's in play. But I do think if you come across Germany, Serbia, US, you are going to need Jamal for at least that one game or more, whatever, however many times you end up facing, if it's two of those three teams, you're going to need him to just look a lot better than he has.
I hear what you're saying, but Canada does also have the best guard on the Indiana Pacers playing for them as well, and Andrew Nembhard, who was incredible today,
Hey.
helping to fill in the gap of Jamal Murray. I think the Pacers should be looking at trading Tyrese Halliburton to let the Nembhard-Siakam duo flourish the way it should. No, maybe not. Although maybe I'm not trolling there. Either way, yeah. What you got?
Look, we've essentially like buried the lead here. Nembhard was fantastic in this game.
Unbelievable, man. He was so good in this game.
And so to see that type of performance, super encouraging. And right out of the gate, right? Like in the first quarter, he comes in and he has that instant impact. And he just looks completely in control. And so the way he played in this one, you hope that it can carry over. You hope that, it can negate as much of Jamal's struggles as possible. And yeah, I think that for sure, you look at this game against Spain, Andrew Nembhard is probably the best story other than, because let's face it, Shea and RJ have been doing their thing. We've almost come to expect it now. So for Nembhard to have a game like this was really huge.
Yeah, no doubt. I think he was honestly, for me, probably the least impressive guy in the Australia game. And for him to bounce back like that, absolutely huge. Some big late game shot making, the pull-up juice he's got, the 8 of 10 from the field. Unbelievable stuff. We're going to come back into the side here, Big V, and take a look at a potential matchup with France, the very likely outcome. We'll get into some of the other situations, how they might come across playing South Sudan, get a little into how Germany absolutely demolished France today, embarrassed them. It was hilarious. We're going to come back in just one sec. Maybe some infighting in France, some, coach Victor Wembanyama discord. It's all coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at eBay Motors, the place to go for car parts, passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Back at it here, talking Canada, going 3-0 in the group of death, becoming the Grim Reaper themselves. It's beautiful. And we'll get into now a potential quarterfinal matchup with France. A quick rundown of the scenarios. Serbia, Sudan, or South Sudan, that is the game to keep an eye on tomorrow. If Serbia wins as expected, it's very likely Canada will be up against France. In fact, it is guaranteed they'll be up against France. If South Sudan wins by a specific amount of points, there's an avenue there for Canada to play South Sudan. All other scenarios lead them to playing France as well. And I think it's probably unwise to count out South Sudan against Serbia. I don't think Serbia has looked amazing in this tournament. South Sudan has had a really nice run, gave the States a serious run in their game in the pre-tournament lead up. Carlik Jones is incredible. I think, are going to have something to say in that game with Serbia. So there's not a guarantee here that it's going to be a Canada-France quarterfinal. There's every possibility it could be a Canada-South Sudan matchup as well. But the most likely outcome here is France. Let's get into that a little bit today. They got hammered today by Germany. It was a 14-point game by the end. This was not a close game. Germany absolutely handled France and made them look kind of embarrassing. It was a really, really impressive performance by Germany. Dennis Schroeder, 26 points, 9 assists. Franz Wagner had 26 points as well. They look really good. They were the World Cup champions for a reason. They are quite a team right now. And shout out FIBA Dennis Schroeder, just tricking people and making them believe all over the place. For whoever signs him this summer going into next year, get ready. Or I guess he's on the Nets, right? Yeah, he's still on the Nets. So Nets fans can talk themselves into FIBA Dennis like Raptors fans did last summer. So likely France is the opponent. What are your thoughts on the potential matchup there? They have not looked very good. Just a +2 differential in the group stage. They beat Brazil. They beat Japan. They didn't look very convincing in that Japan win in particular. Again, got completely demolished by Germany. Victor Wembanyama has been good, but not incredible. And the rest of that roster is kind of weird. They don't have a ton of guard play, as you alluded to before. Thoughts on a potential matchup with France and their starting point guard, Evan Fournier?
Yeah, I don't think that France matches up well with Canada. I think that when you look at the guard play, again, Evan Fournier and Isaiah Cordinier in the backcourt, like that does not bode well against Shea and RJ or Dylan, if you want to put them in the backcourt. And so I think that's a big advantage for Canada. Watching this Germany game, I think the thing that becomes a little bit interesting is the fact that after trailing 48-27 at the half, they went to benching Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
And so, maybe that helped the spacing a little bit and maybe took out some of the clunkiness of the offense. I think that if you've been watching the French games, you can see that the offense has looked very, very clunky. And I think that's where a lot of the issues stem from. And again, they don't have good guard play. So maybe that's something they consider against Canada and just bring Rudy Gobert off the bench. But at the same time, they might just look at it and say, hey, size is our best shot. We got to have both of them out there. So I think that's sort of a bit of intrigue for me going into that matchup now. Potentially, if it happens, do they bench Rudy Gobert? And then what comes of that? So I say Canada are the favorites if that's the matchup that plays out. And it'll be a major disappointment if they were to lose to France.
Yeah, I mean, you have the home crowd behind France. Obviously, that'll be a factor. FIBA officiating is always a little bit weird. And Wemby is, the second best player in this game. Talk to me in a year, he's probably the best player in this game. It's horrifying to think about what he's going to become as he owns our lives for the next 10 years in the NBA. But I'm not sure he's quite there yet. And yeah, this supporting cast is positively 23-24 Spurs ass in terms of not being very good and not having a ton of guard play. I think it would be a really nice game for Jamal Murray and Kelly Olynyk both to kind of get cooking. Obviously, Olynyk, if you can we've seen in the NBA, if you can have a spacing big out there with Rudy Gobert and sort of pull him away from the basket, that tends to bode pretty well for how your offense is going to run. And if Jamal Murray can, have some pull-up juice, have some wiggle, be able to, just sort of get into the Jamal Murray flow of things against a team that is going to be very large, is going to have a lot of juice around the rim in terms of the rim protection and size and just sort of difficulty scoring on the interior. Having Jamal Murray's in-between game, having his pull-up three-point shooting, I think would be a nice sort of counter to that. Again, we might be past the point of hoping Jamal Murray's going to reach like peak levels in this tournament, but if he can have a game or two where he really pops, it would be a great place to do that in this France game, I think. As far as the Wemby thing, I think obviously you'll probably just throw it Dwight Powell or you'll have Trey Lyles and Dwight Powell or, a couple bigs on the floor for that. Actually, I don't even know how they're going to handle this. If they don't bench Rudy Gobert, if they just roll out Gobert and Wembanyama, what do you do if you're Jordy Fernandez? Because they have been just kind of going with the one big. Dylan Brooks has gotten the big assignments on Giannis, or the big assignment on Giannis earlier in the tournament. Do you just throw Dylan Brooks on Wemby and use your big to guard Gobert? Or do you have to go two bigs and sort of go against what's gotten you here? I think it's a pretty fascinating conundrum because of the size issue and the rebounding that has been sort of the Achilles heel for Canada when things have not been going super smoothly.
Yeah, I think this is where, again, just having that friendly already in the bag against France helps, right? And we've seen that they'll throw Dylan Brooks at him and really just try to be a pest and get the ball out of Wemby's hands, throw him off, And again, if Wemby wants to try and size down Dylan Brooks and, sort of post him up, go ahead.
Yeah.
Dylan Brooks can take that.
Yep. In fact, he'll be maniacal in his accepting of it. He'll be very, very eager and keen.
Exactly. So I think that friendly actually bodes really well for Canada because you kind of got to test some stuff out and you saw it work well. And so you have every reason to buy into it again. And that was, again, played in France. So you got a taste of what that home crowd is like. You've also seen that, hey, if you get up on them early, that French crowd will also boo the team. And
Yeah.
so and so I think that's the mentality you got to come in with. Obviously, you're not going to take them lightly. You're not going to say a friendly is going to be what determines this game. And, once that ball goes up, it's 0-0 and you got to start over. But I think as long as Canada can really dominate that guard matchup and then hold its own on the interior, they should take care of business.
Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, I mean, just France has not looked right. They don't look like a cohesive team. And yeah, they had the front court advantage. I don't think there's any debating that. I mean, beyond Wemby and Rudy Gobert, they've got Matthias Lesor, a guy who I was all in on in the 2017 draft, feeling very vindicated that he's looked reasonably fine in the Olympic tournament. Gershon Yabusele is enormous. We know this. They've got themselves some beef in that front court, but give me guard play in a FIBA tournament over, dominant bigs all day long, right? Like it's undeniable to me that you look through the history of FIBA, you look at what Germany's doing right now with Dennis Schroeder at the helm. Like guard play is what wins in FIBA, and I feel pretty damn good about the edge that Canada is going to have in that department. Much like I did, frankly, in the game against Spain today. It did not feel like, yeah, Spain kept it close because I think they were just extremely desperate and throwing everything they had out there, and they had a whole bunch of sort of vets off the bench just doing old man FIBA stuff. Sergio Yul, Dario Brizuela. It was, like throwback Spain stuff. But I give me the guard play advantage all day over the advantages that France might have in certain positions in this game. And just for food for thought, Ben Golliver is over there covering the tournament. He had a quote from France coach Vincent Collet on Twitter. He posted earlier about Victor Wembanyama in the Germany loss, quote unquote. He stopped the ball too much against that kind of aggressiveness. You can't play that way. You're never one-on-one because they come to double team and there's no space to operate. It's important to move the ball, end quote. Not like when your best player is stopping the ball and causing your coach to call you out after games. Maybe not the rosiest situation there. I think, you should feel pretty good about Canada's chances against France. If they play South Sudan, I mean, that's kind of a wild card, I think. They are just like a pretty, like Carlik Jones is incredible and can kind of, you would expect Canada to be very comfortable favorites in that one, but I think maybe even more like trap game potential than they would have against France, I think, just because maybe there's like a human nature underestimating thing going on there. But underestimate South Sudan at your own peril. Whether you're Serbia or whoever plays them in the quarterfinals, because they have been a spunky bunch and are just like a minus six overall, minus 4 overall in terms of overall differential, despite getting beaten handily by the States. They're a good squad. It still just seems like France is the most likely opponent here, which is why we spent the most time on it. Let's quickly head on into the good, the bad, and the to round out the show and send you off into the rest of your weekend. We'll do that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the single best place to go and wager on some sports if you're into that type of thing, especially the Olympics. They have lines for all kinds of events over at the Olympics. And if you want to go have a little fun watching some rowing or some fencing and you want a little action going, you can go do that at FanDuel. All summer long, FanDuel is hooking up customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer and your Summer Olympics. Right now, Canada is plus 800 as the second most likely team to win the men's basketball gold medal. USA is minus 600. That's come down a little bit since the start of the tournament. I think they were about minus 900 at the start. Just what RJ Barrett's doing has simply changed the odds. It's unbelievable. Germany is plus 900 as well. Serbia plus 1900. You can go and throw some money down on whoever you'd like to go and throw some money down on to win the gold medal in Paris, if that is your kind of thing. Go check them out at FanDuel.com. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, wrapping it up here with Big V, Vivek Jacob, with some good, some bad, and some from Canada's game against Spain today. A thing we liked, a thing we didn't like, a thing that has us a little bit intrigued. I'm going to add in a little bit a women's basketball talk in one of my points here as well. But Big V, take it away. Good, bad, from today against Spain.
My good, I got to roll with Andrew Nembhard. I think just to step up to the plate, to have the game he had against a tough Spanish opponent, to have that type of performance. 18 points, I believe he finished with, and it was 8 or 10 shooting, like just really, really solid and much needed. Again, like Jamal really struggled in this one. So to get the minutes out of him, didn't get much out of Lou Dort in this one either. So I think that production was just huge in winning this game.
Absolutely. Shout out to Dort. He did have an absolutely enormous rebound late in this game. I can't remember exactly what it led to. It led to something good happening. It's all fuzzy to me now. But yeah, great call for Andrew Nembhard. I'm going to go Dylan Brooks. Like FIBA Dylan rocks, man, and further makes me really, really want the Toronto Raptors to find a way to trade for him and put him into a lineup next to RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly at the 1, 2, and 3. He's awesome. He's a maniac. I think he's going to like go full sicko mode up against Wemby if that's the assignment he draws. By the way, I think Dort probably has a say against Wemby as well. I think maybe the best way to guard Wemby is short, stout, mean guy, and hope that sort of the punching up thing bothers Wemby enough. But yeah, Dylan Brooks, incredible. Just so like, I know he's like very erratic in the NBA and drives you crazy if he's on your team probably, and drives non-fans of his teams crazy as well. But for Canada, just so bloody consistent. And when he's not in foul trouble, he is unbelievably effective. 2 fouls today. You love to see it, Dylan Brooks. What you got for your bad?
Unfortunately, just I don't want to pick at Jamal. So I am going to go in a bit of a different direction. I will go with the sort of lack of interior presence. And I think the sort of, you knew that Spain, with their experience, with their know-how, were going to really battle, those 50-50 balls. They were really going to be at it. And obviously the size factor, having Willie Hernan Gomez, like it was always going to be difficult. But I think to get beat the way they did on the glass, that was a bad in this one. And you feel like if that could have just been cleaned up a bit more, maybe it doesn't get so tense at the end.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think 17 offensive rebounds for Spain in this game. You just can't have that. And also you can't have your leading rebounders being tied with 4 rebounds and those people being Jamal Murray and Dylan Brooks. That's not great, Bob. I think, we could go Kelly Olynyk as well. We've talked about him a little bit through the tournament, looking pretty rough. Do you have any concern about Kelly Olynyk and how he's looked in this tournament? I think it's maybe more of just like, he's kind of between positions in FIBA right now. He's not a rim protecting center. They're not playing with 2 bigs. They're rolling with the wings and the guards. I think that's the right call. He just hasn't been able to get comfortable. Is there any concern about Kelly? Because I think he's been pretty rough too.
He has had a rough go. I think, especially when you look at the 3-point shooting for Canada, like, it's worked out that they've defended the perimeter well enough where teams have shot, I believe, 29% from 3 over the course of the 3 games. And I think when you look at making up for that differential in attempts, like Spain had 33 attempts in this game to Canada's 16, if I'm not mistaken. It just so happened that Spain only made 10 of those 33 attempts. And so I think Kelly is someone who, when he's in the game and when he's got that ability to pop, he's got to knock some shots down. And as you said, he's not going to really be a major factor on the defensive end. And so that's where it's really got to pop for him, quite literally.
Yeah, for sure. The sort of honorary bad I had as well, and it's not like a happy bad. I'm not like eager to get into it. It's a bummer. The Canadian women's team looking pretty rough in their side of the bracket. Lost to France in the opener. We talked about that earlier this week. Then lost to Australia yesterday, and their offense, Big V, just looks stuck in the mud. I mean, we all knew this was not the best Canadian women's team ever sent to a major tournament. We know it's kind of a transitional phase. There's a lot of young talent coming up that makes 2028 the year to really have your eye on for this squad. But I didn't want to go without mentioning it just because they played it since our last podcast, but it does not seem like they are on track to move on in the tournament. They still have an outside shot if they can win their last game in their group against Nigeria and get some help, but it's been a pretty rough go for Canada and Victor Lepeña's team. Just the lack of shot creation. I mean, Bridget Carleton did her damn best against Australia, but there's just not a ton of creation on this team right now that you can really count on. Overall impressions of the way the women have performed so far, it's been, again, even with the lack of super high expectations, I still think it's been a little bit of a letdown so far.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the offense. Like every time I've watched them play, it just feels like, you mentioned that there is a lack of shot creation, but I also can't help but watch those players and feel like, there's more on the table and that they
Sure.
should be capable of more. And so that does make me ask questions of the offensive system that they have. The other thing that makes me ask questions is the fact that we, in general, even if you go back over the last year or so, we have not seen the best of Kia Nurse, right?
No.
And so you've got to be able to get more out of her, and you ask the question like, hey, is she getting the best out of herself, or is the team getting the best out of herself? And I kind of lean towards, when I watch them play, the team is not getting the best out of herself. And so obviously that asks questions of the coach. And as you rightly said, it is a transitional phase, but I still think that the offense should have looked better than it did.
Yeah, I think hopefully against Nigeria they can get a result. Maybe pad the point differential, get in as one of those wild card teams. Like, it's still possible here, but the way Nigeria has played, it doesn't seem super likely that Canada's going to have the juice to do it. And it's just a bummer, right? Like, I was really hoping for like a couple of knockout round games and all that. A bit of a surprise. Maybe some of the youth pops and overachieves. Haven't quite seen that. Silas Swords looking a little bit like she's 18 years old. What are you supposed to do? She's 18 years old. But yeah, just wanted to quickly hit on the women as they look to, hopefully get it back on the board with a win over Nigeria and get themselves into the quarters and make me look very stupid for having them as my honorary bad here on the show. By the time we get to next week, Big V, your from Canada, Spain, or just the group stage in general, what you got?
My will probably, I will lean towards Lugan's Dort looking like a plus minus god.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the different ways that potentially the Raptors could line up, and you look at the potential contracts that OKC might be facing, is there a path to a Lugan's Dort? I know you brought up Dylan Brooks and you'd love to bring him in, and I think that would be fantastic, especially as a fellow Saga man. I would love to see it, but I think that is another player who I think could look pretty good in a Raptors uniform. Obviously you'd have to address some things with the spacing, but I do think
that's a 40% 3-point shooter you're talking about, V. That's going to stick for sure.
But I do think, when you look at what the Raptors' weaknesses are, having a guy like that could be pretty impactful.
Yeah. I'm in on, look, I'm not one of these everyone's got to be Canadian on the team guys. I think we can be discerning and choose the good Canadians to put on the Toronto Raptors and not just say, oh, passport, get on the team. But Dort and Brooks, I think, would certainly check the boxes of being the good ones to try to add to your team who would certainly fit needs. I like that a lot. My is just imagining what this team would have looked like if Zach Edey were here. And I'm mad at the Grizzlies. I'm mad at how it all worked out. I think Zach Edey would have been a really, really nice change of pace big on this team. They're really looking for someone. And look, Kem Birch had a really nice turn of 5 or so minutes today. They're not really leaning on him for much. Kelly Olynyk got 15 minutes today. Like we talked about, he's looked pretty rough. Trey Lyles, I think, more looks like just like a 4. He's sort of the Dylan Brooks backup than he is sort of any kind of big. And I don't think they're asking him to really carry those big defensive assignments against opposing talls. But Zach Edey to come in and be the backup for Dwight Powell, I think it would have been a lot of fun. I think it would have helped a lot with their rebounding issues. And I'm a little mad. I wish you were around. I wish you were playing. I wish we could see the big, large man do big, large man things for a team that could really use a big, large man. But alas, it's not there. That's fine. 2028, baby. It's only 4 years away when he'll be in a contract year. Extend him early, Memphis. Extend him today, please. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out. And thanks to you, Big V, for sitting in and talking ball. You have anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Usual stuff. I will have a Raptors in 7 newsletter coming out, just kind of reviewing what RJ and Kelly in particular have looked like for Team Canada, because we want to keep it Raptors centric. And beyond that, doing stuff for Sportsnet and tweeting away at Vivek Jacob. So you can always check that out.
Go do all of those things. You can find me at Woodley Sean. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, etc., etc. We are now into off-season mode. It's August. We're going down to 3 shows a week for the next 6 weeks or so until mid-September. So we'll be a little more sporadic with the schedule. I would say that, we're going to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and keep it very strict, but that's not really how my brain works. And so you'll get 3 shows a week. The days they happen may be a little bit sporadic depending on holidays and time off and things like that. The next episode you'll hear from this show will be on Tuesday. We'll probably hold it after the quarterfinal game that Canada plays against either France or South Sudan, depending on the results from Saturday. And we'll react to that and look ahead, hopefully, to a semifinal matchup for Canada. And if not, we'll cry and be sad and all that stuff. But either way, thanks so much for hanging out. We will talk to you again on Tuesday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Enjoy the long weekend if you're one of our Canadian listeners, which I think most of you are. If you're not, then happy Monday to our American listeners and have a good Monday and all of that. But anyway, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again after the weekend, and go Canada. Bye. Oh.